If you want to understand what good journalism should look like, all you have to do is check out how Fareed Zakaria took care of this particular right-wing pompous historian. But you know what? I don't always agree with Fareed Zakaria because I think sometimes he's more measured than he needs to be. Sometimes I think he's more in as much as we are supposed to try to always work together, sometimes I think he's a bit soft in his conclusions, but he's an excellent journalist that I think we should always listen to. I was excited the way he handled this person, measured but effective. Check this out and let's take it on the other side.
Neil, what do you think is the message in Biden being elected, Trump being denied a second term, but the Senate apparently staying Republican, the Democrats not doing so well in the House? Make sense of that.
Well, I'm going to disagree with your monologue, Fareed, which I know is very presumptuous of me. But actually, what you said seemed to contradict itself. You began by saying the country was deeply divided, and then you went on to show that actually, when you look at voting, it cut across racial divisions quite clearly. And I'd argue that this election has actually been the victory of the centre, running against a great deal of media commentary, some of it yours, that foresaw a constitutional crisis, if not an outright civil war. This election wasn't the 1860 election that led to civil war after Lincoln's victory. It wasn't 1876 when a bunch of states sent rival electors to Washington and the whole thing ended up being stitched up in a rather seamy deal. In fact, for me, the most surprising thing is that you had highest turnout since 1900, both sides successfully mobilizing voters, but the country collectively voted for the center ground.
Neil, let me ask you about the Republican Party, and this is why I would persist in saying that the country is polarized. You have now, by the latest polls, 77% of the Republican Party that believes that this election was fraudulent and that Joe Biden stole it. You have a situation where Donald Trump is, without any question, the dominant figure in the Republican Party, even after having lost an election.
Well, let's remember, Fareed, that many Democrats felt that way, not only about the 2016 election, but about the 2000 election. So it's not like it's the first time that the losers have said the election was stolen. The Democrats spent 4 years trying to find evidence that Vladimir Putin was responsible for Donald Trump's election and failed to find it. So I think we shouldn't over-exaggerate. We shouldn't exaggerate what we are seeing here.
I just want to do a factual point. Neil mentioned that Democrats also, after 2016, thought the elections were rigged. I just checked it. About 30% of Democrats thought the election was rigged or fraudulent. It is now, as I said, about 75 to 80% of Republicans who believe that. So I do think that is a difference.
And if you notice that after the break, Fareed Zakaria had his producers, they went ahead and did their research to make sure that his audience got the valid information, to make sure that that false equivalence that this right-wing hack was trying to put out there was not going to stay in the ethos. One of the problems we have with the mainstream media today is these right-wingers come onto TV to put their message out. They're not really there to answer questions. They're there to push a narrative. Look, I don't have a problem if you want to push a narrative, but the counter-narrative and the corrections and the truth need to still be found a way to get out there. And good for Fareed Zakaria. He did exactly what he needed to do to make sure that that false equivalence, that misinformation that this guy is trying to put out there, that Niall Ferguson, this great historian with that great accent, somehow wants to get into the psyche of others, it's not there. There is a difference. There is a difference. And the losing side, whenever they spoke about Democrats, were really not the losing side ever. Remember that. But when it comes to Donald Trump, they have always been the losing side. Great job, Fareed Zakaria. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.